As well as announcing the 6th of September 2015 as the date passengers will be able to use trains on the Borders Railway, the First Minister was there to announce a feasibility study which will look at how the Borders Railway will transform the tourism potential of the region. The study will look at the creation of a permanent home at Tweedbank Station for the Great Tapestry of Scotland, the world's largest embroidered tapestry, reflecting the textile heritage of the region.
I believe that we can create one of the greatest, if not the greatest, tourist railway lines in Europe. Obviously, a great tourist line requires steam trains, because that is what the tourists will want to travel on as they go through the magnificent scenery of this part of Scotland. We have, of course, the other terminus in Waverley Station in Edinburgh, the busiest railway station in Scotland, and Edinburgh, where 7 million tourists each year visit our capital city. And we all know with the correct offering, and this will be the correct offering, that a substantial percentage of these tourists will take the opportunity in 1 hour to travel down the Borders line. But one thing I want to make absolutely clear before we leave, ladies and gentlemen, the feasibility study we've announced is not to say if this is going to happen. It's going to say how it's going to happen. This will happen. The Borders Railway will open next year. The first steam trains will run on the Borders Railway next year. And in 2017, 2018, in that year, then this Great Tapestry Centre will be built and we'll move the project on to fulfil its potential. And that's exactly what the feasibility study will be doing. Not if it's going to happen, but how it's going to happen to best effect. I was handy today, not to keep unfortunately, a ticket from the last day, from the 5th of January 1969. An unused return ticket, I know, a cheap day, second, so obviously I'll use this I'll use this to get to Tweedbank at least when the first day it resumes. But we're all looking forward to that and we're all excited by it. Today, of course, we're announcing the next phase. That is to make sure that this becomes not just a great employment line, commuting line, communication line, but this becomes one of the greatest tourist railway lines in the continent of Europe. How can we do that? Because we're starting from Waverley Station, the busiest railway station in Scotland, the capital city of Scotland, Edinburgh, 7 million visitors a year. Even if we get a fraction of these visitors, and I think we'll get more than a fraction, wanting to come to the gateway to the Borders, to come down here to Tweedbank Station, to visit the Great Tapestry of Scotland, a splendid initiative by Borders Council, to get the great retail outlet in this business park, which hopefully can be turned into a retail emporium, to see the great products of the Borders, you know, the beer from Traquair, the fantastic food, the John Buchan experience, the textiles, the cashmeres. It's going to be absolutely terrific. And the greatest thing of all is, you know, if you take like the West Highland Line, the Malay, fantastic, what an experience that is. But you're a day to get there, a day to do that, well worth it, and a day to come back again for you in Central Scotland. People can get this in an hour. In half a day, they can experience the full delights of the Borders. I think this is irresistible. It's going to be one of the greatest tourist lines in the continent of Europe.
When Alex Salmond visited Selkirk a few weeks back, we were all taken aback by his enthusiasm for the Borders Railway and trains in general. And he remembered with fondness days out from his own childhood.
What I remember actually is Sunday school or school trips over the Forth Railway Bridge.
To Burnt Island.
To Burnt Island, Kinghorn, places like that. And you know, there's two things you did. One was, the great thing was to get your streamers out, so as you could see the engine.
I'd forgotten about that, yes.
We're looking out the window. And the second thing, of course, when you went over the Forth Bridge, and I'm quite certain it's against health and safety these days, so I'm not, please, nobody do this. But in these days, in these carefree days, the trick was to fling an old penny out the window and get it through the stanchions of the bridge into the water. That was the task. They used to say that the people painting the bridge, and of course they painted it all the time, used to get a fortune of the pennies that had landed in the islands instead of getting into the water. But it was romantic, it was majestic, it was extraordinary. There's nothing quite like a great steam locomotive. And I can tell you, we've already been negotiating with some great people, people like John Cameron, tremendous enthusiast.
Owner of the Union of South Africa,
Union
of course.
South Africa, and John will be very willing. If we can build a line in such a way it can take steam trains of that capacity in terms of their turning circle, and that's one of the things that the feasibility study we're looking at. Now, obviously, we're committing to steam trains. We're going to have steam trains without any question. Initially, we're going to run a steam train next year. So there will be steam trains run next year, but that'll be a trial basis, because obviously you want to have the real effort when you've got the tapestry at the destination at Tweedbank here. That's going to be really important for. And then once we've got that, we'll up the projection. And I think the demand will be there. And as the demand is there, we'll see what can be done. And that's some of the feasibility study to make sure we're meeting that demand and taking every possible advantage of what the Borders has to offer.
Well, yes, I mean, he's mentioned that he would like to see more done and more railway coming into that. So I've been pushing him since then to see if they would actually extend the railway to Hoyken and hopefully Carlisle in the future. To date, his own minister has declined to agree to do any of this. So it seems like Salmond's saying one thing, where his Minister of Transport saying the very opposite.
We're quite far advanced in this area. We have sleepers laid out and we're prepared. The final preparations are underway for the rail systems to start in October. We've got one bridge here which is still under construction. This was a new bridge to accommodate the construction of a recycling centre, the zero waste facility. It was a late addition so that there's appropriate access into the recycling centre. You've seen the road rail maintenance team unloading vehicles, and they're going to start some of the advanced work on the live railway. Switch points have been delivered throughout August, and we will start in the north end here, and throughout the autumn we'll be laying track down through the Borders Railway and connecting those switch points. There are about 10,000 HGV movements to bring in the material, so a lot of logistical planning. A big civils job to get it out and get it laid in advance, and the sleepers also all get unloaded. So there's a lot of work at the moment to get stuff ready for the materials ready for the track line. What we're doing here is we're putting in the final support beams. These are temporary beams which will support the concrete shuttering, and we'll pour one final slab right over the top of the bridge structure, and it holds all of these beams, the concrete beams that you can see in place. There's a very thick layer of ballast, and it's an important part of the rail systems. The sleepers sit on top of this ballast, and they help secure the sleepers in place, and they stop movement on the sleeper. The tracks are clipped into the top, and then all the weight from the train is then spread out over the sleeper and over the ballast. As soon as we finish the bridge behind us, we'll fill in the gap there, but again we really start to get the sleepers laid out. And as you can see behind me, the precast units have been fitted into place and assembled, and you can see the shape of the platforms now. So a pretty substantial double platform in this area, and there's also concrete piers in the background where we have built the foundations for the new pedestrian access bridge, so that you can get to both sides of the platform. Yeah, there was a lot of planning went into this work. We had about 100,000 cubic metres of material brought in to create the diversion, and then a phased transfer. So we're very happy with the way that this went. And you can see behind us the traffic's now back on its original alignment, and certainly one of the largest structures on the scheme is completed and ready for the final section of work through here. It's one of the benefits of this site is we do have a lot of room to work, so we've got a lot of big kit in here. Pushed that last section of earthworks, and the rail systems that we're prepping in the north area will start to push through here very quickly.
Now, you were a fireman and then became a driver, but I mean, being a fireman, so much hard work involved, something like 5 tons of coal to shift for one trip from Carlisle to Edinburgh.
Carlisle to Edinburgh, yeah, you would, switch at the Waverley or the Sleeper or something like that at night, you'd shovel 4 or 5 tons of coal, because they were heavy trains, it was a heavy road, heavy gradients from the Waverley Line. It was one of the, when every railway out of Carlisle is a hard road, you've got a big hill whichever way you go. You've got Shapon going south, or the Settling Carlisle line, you've got over Aysgill, you've got Beatwick going north, Wittrop, and then again Harriet to Edinburgh. Two big banks going to Edinburgh.
So what about your own memories of working on the Waverley Line?
No, I really enjoyed it. I was very fortunate, really, because being 18 when I started on the railway, I was allowed to go on the main line. You weren't allowed to fire on the main line until you were 18 in BR days, but I was 18 when I started, so I only spent the first winter I was on, actually doing cleaning jobs.
What a lovely part of the world, though. I mean, particularly you go past Hawick and then heading for Edinburgh. I mean, it's just so scenic.
Yeah, it is. Well, one of the nicest bits, I always thought. I mean, going up over Wittrup and that was quite scenic. Like, it's very wild and moody, much like the Settle Line. The run up Gala Water from Galashiels up to Heriot, I think that was the prettiest bit. Like, it was nice.
You kept going and right up to the 1960s, and then, of course, the beaching cuts, which had a massive impact.
Oh yeah. That decimated things really. Lost quite a few of the local lines around Carlisle closed, the line down to Silloth closed, like the Keswick branch, things like that. Like, and of course the Waverley Line as well.
But nearly 50 years on, you're still doing steams, and of course steam engines are as popular as ever.
Oh yeah, they're more popular. When they started running them again over the Settle Line, it was a case of our inspectors at the time, Ronnie Gerrard, they wanted to run 2 or 3 trips over the Settle Line with Green Arrow and another Black 5, 54 or 7. We ended up, after about the first year, running one every 2 or 3 months. After a couple of years, we ended up like it is now, running one every weekend. It just seemed to mushroom.
So there'll be a lot of people in the borders who obviously haven't experienced trains before, because it's missed out a generation, and particularly steam engines as well. What can you say to the people of the borders, that they're going to get this rail service, they're going to get steam trains running back to the borders for the first time in over 40 years?
Yeah, well, the only thing I can say to the people of the borders is you've managed to get your railway back, for goodness sake, use it.
It must be something which is going to be emotional for you, because you remember the protests in the late 60s, the closure of the stations, etc. And to see it back again and to eventually, yourself go on board a train will be very emotional.
Oh, yeah. I've seen me, even now, gone up a last girl with tears in my eyes. Yeah.
very significant works going on in Galashiels just now. We're at full construction now. This is the railway at the height of its construction. But the good news is that in the months and weeks ahead, we're going to start to see the railway's construction lessen. We're going to see some of the structures finishing, and we're going to see the town returning to normal. But very good news about all the work that's going on just now.
A lot of talk about the integration of the bus timetable with the trains. How's that progressing?
Well, that's very critical. One of the things that we were required to do as part of the parliamentary process is make sure that we have integrated transport to linking the railway to the rest of the public transport network. We're working very hard at Scottish Borders Council at the moment to redesign the bus timetable and to look at how public transport will work in the borders. And later on next year, we'll be making some announcements just about how bus connectivity and public transport will link with the railway.